My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 328 of Legally Clueless. Thank you so much for rocking with the podcast and being part of the family. This is what's coming up in this episode.
My mom started the event because I lost my sister to bipolar disorder. And what I mean by that is she committed suicide. But it will be diabetes or cancer or all these other things that will take a life. So as my mom always rightly says, I think it's fair to say that you can say the mental illness took the life. And a lot of people don't know that about me. It happened 3 days before my 15th birthday. It happened 4 days before Thanksgiving, which is a huge holiday in the United States. Huge holiday time for people to gather, be with family, celebrate. It's supposed to be happy. And yeah, I hope people will say that I was fun and interesting and kind. And I hope people will say I tried really hard. I hope they'll say she did it. She did something. She really wanted that, and she went out and she sought it out and she conquered.
That is part 2 of Wanjira's story. It's coming up a little later, but first and foremost, I truly hope you're okay. I hope you're well. I hope if you're navigating a challenge, you hang in there. Seasons come and go, all right? So it might be a challenging season that you're in, but don't lose sight of the bigger picture. It's going to change. Ups and downs is what life is made up of. I don't know why, but I feel very moved to share that with you. And so there you go. The other thing is my heart is so full, so full, because last night we had our first ever mannerless event, which is part of our new show for mannerless women. Oh my goodness. So it was our mannerless movie night last night, and every woman who came was just absolutely incredible. We had women pick cards from our mannerless deck that had incredibly thought-provoking questions that led to the most sweetest, insightful conversations. And then we had tons of popcorn while we watched my film home. And then we just hung out. Literally, we moved the chairs around into many circles. And then we just hang out as though we'd known each other for years. We arrived strangers, but we left as friends. WhatsApp groups were formed. I really want our next event to be a dance class. That's going to be my proposal to the team. Fingers crossed that they agree. But what's going to help me plead my case is if you let me know in the comments if you'd be down to come for a mannerless dance class. Because I'm thinking there's a pretty interesting dance instructor here in Kenya. She's just vivacious and just oozes that mannerless energy. Can you imagine a twerking class, and just that sisterhood, that fun, that letting loose? Genuinely, me personally, I think this should be the next event. But help me plead the case. Let me know wherever you're listening to this on in the comments if you'd be down for that. Another thing I have to tell you before we jump into 100 African stories is our next wellness talk is here. I really miss them. We do one every other month or one every second month. So I'm woo, here we go again. This time it's for all entrepreneurs and everyone and anyone who is currently thinking about starting a business. How you have this business idea and then it's okay, so where do I go from here? And normally I find at that point it's not even a matter of the technicalities. It's more fear, isn't it? Am I, is it just me? Because this week I have to make a major move on another business I have, and fear has really slowed me down. Really slowed me down. So I'm really looking forward to this particular class because I need it specifically for my other business. Our guest speaker is Yvonne Kanye, and she is a successful entrepreneur, business owner. She has 2 businesses. One is Beauty Squared, which sells incredible skincare products and really just walks the journey with you when it comes to figuring out your skincare. And the second is a spa right? Sage. And they do facials, massages, and everything in between. And what I love about Yvonne is that she's always carried us along with her on her entrepreneurial journey. On her socials, she'll be so vulnerable and open, even telling us about a time when an employee stole massive amounts of money from one of her businesses. People don't talk about these things. Everybody tries to present their business or their journey as business people as being perfect. And this, hey, let me tell you, this journey is quite unpredictable. So I'm looking forward to this wellness talk because she's going to be taking us through how to spot business opportunities and then just starting smart. All right. And here she'll share learnings from her beginnings and the mistakes she made. I know one of the mistakes she's going to talk about is mismanaging cash flow at the start. Another thing she's going to talk about is building a successful brand and business, which she is doing. Leveraging content creation and social media, another thing she's doing incredibly well. Building customer loyalty, which is the core of every business, and scaling your business the smart way. I cannot wait for you to attend this talk. I had a conversation with Yvonne that's coming your way probably in the middle of this week. It's refreshing to hear someone talk about business in a human way. Tickets are just 1,000 bob. You can grab them via a link in the show notes. It's on the 28th of June, 10 a.m. East African time until 12:30 p.m. It's the best way to start off your weekend. And yeah, grab your tickets, but also share about our wellness talk because that's what makes this family great. Share the good news with the people in your lives who are on that business journey or just about to start. Trust me, I wish I had such a talk at the beginning of, especially like this Legally Clueless Africa business, because I made so many, I'm still making mistakes. I wish I had such a wellness talk. Anyway, let's jump into 100 African stories. Wanjira is back for part 2. She's an incredible radio presenter and more here in Nairobi, in case you don't know. And this is part 2 of her story. So if you haven't listened to part 1, this is not going to make sense. You may need to go back to the previous episode. But here she speaks to her starting a new business. Even how she should come for a wellness talk. And losing her sister to bipolar disorder. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
And I wanted it so bad. Like, I don't think people understand how badly I wanted it. Like, moving to Kenya, getting a job here, working, doing what I love. Like, I was also like, wow, I have a film background and a radio television background. Like, I was like, this is it. Like, unreal. Like, it was like a fairy tale. I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. Also, it was like calling my parents to tell them. Like, they were flabbergasted. They thought I was coming to party all the time. They're like, well, you're a party girl. And this Nairobi place parties inside up, inside out, upside down, front to back, back to front. Like, of course, you want to be on the scene. Now they're like, wow, this chick actually like made something like this happen for herself. And you know, none of us really get it, but then you're Googling or you're being told or it's like, oh, and Capital Femme is reputable. It's quite good. I never had to stay illegally because now this is also connection. So people at Jobo are showing me this is how you need to get. Now you obviously need to get documents and all this kind of stuff. You have to prove, that your mother is Kenyan, that you are eligible for citizenship and whatever. And what I will also say is like in 2014, it was hard because I was one of the first people. I was in the first wave of people, amongst the first wave of people who were really doing this dual citizenship thing. So they would give you a runaround. But I also had support. I had people who could help me, who could explain to me, you go into this part of the department and you get X, Y, and Z. So it was a pain in the neck, but I was able to get documents. And one thing that, and I have family who've not always had it easy, where they immigrated to the U.S., for example, and now they have to get documentation, and they're not necessarily getting fairy tales and dream jobs and all this kind of stuff. That's why I was so happy. But, there's also privilege that comes with that obviously can't be overlooked. right? And that's also something that I find that has been very interesting in my trajectory. And I think it's important to discuss and also come back to, because it would be a little blind to not do so, and to not be real and frank with that. Obviously, sounding a certain way, looking a certain way, having access to education, even being able, like, this also goes back to privilege, right? Being able to be in the same rooms with people who can connect you with other people. These are all things that I recognized then and still recognize now. But yeah, so that's how this started. That's how this journey started officially from a living space in 2014. So I find the running joke, now I'm a Kenyan proper, so we can get real. So the running joke, obviously, that we all have as Kenyans, because now we can get into it for real, right? Because I'm Kenyan. I've been here a decade, baby. And with that, it's so true. Kenyans are like really are better to foreigners than they will be to each other. And it's like a really interesting space and place sometimes to watch. Everyone was so welcoming and nice inside and outside of the office. There was really no issue. One thing also is that the running joke as well of Capital is that it's the accent station, right? It's like the furthest thing from your vernacular citizen, for example, where you're going to have Kisi, Dolo, Kikuyu, Kiluya, etc. There's barely any Swahili, or Shang or something like that. So it was a very smooth transition because there's not the pressure of that I'm thinking, oh, maybe I have to learn a language really quickly. So anything that I'm doing or learning is on my own accord and at my own pace. Now, given the kind of human being that I am, I like to absorb things quickly. One, I'm a fire sign that moves very fast. Typical Sag, who's always on the go. And then also, like, I'm a sponge. Like, I'm very curious, like I said, about people, about stories, about it. So if I hear people speaking Kiswahili and Sheng and blah, 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 and like, whatever it is, or like their mother tongue, like I want to learn some phrases or know or experience, because also the bane of my existence anywhere I go in the world is immediately appearing like a foreigner who's like also that very American foreigner who just isn't interested in the place or is interested only in the things that interest them. Americans get this a lot and rightly get flack for this because it's deserved. And that's just never really been my experience. So I always knew that like I wanted to be a local. I didn't want like to do Kenya from what is this? I call them foreigners, expat. I never wanted to do that. Like there was nothing that looked less attractive to me. And it didn't matter if I pronounced something. And, one thing that's actually really funny is I might not be so good at Kiswahili or Kikuyu or whatever, but if you say something, and this comes from a few different things. One, I'm very musically gifted. So language is sound. And that's why like a lot of people have trouble sometimes saying things as a native. Like, like speaking French can sound awkward or whatever. But if you can mimic sound well, okay, and you have a musical background, especially any type of singing or something that you're at an advantage than a lot of other people, then you'll be able to speak and sound like a native. The other thing is I've been exposed to all sorts of languages since I was born. That also helps. My parent, being Kenyan and Slovak, coupled with the fact that I'm from New York, where you have a trillion languages going around you. But people will tease me mercilessly. I remember just the other day, and when I say the other day, I mean last week, Wednesday, I literally said "Hongera sana" to someone, and somebody came up to me. Even a decade after living here, people think it's very funny to do. And they're not doing it, by the way, to be mean. They're not doing it to be ugly, but they'll come up to me. Somebody will hear and come up and be like, "Hongerisana." And it's really weird to me because I don't sound like that. Like they'll put on like, when an American is like, oh, hola, como estas? Or like, hey, kuna matata? Or something. Like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, like I can actually enter a room and like sound, I can trick people into thinking I speak Kiswahili because of the way I'll pronounce it correctly. Then they'll keep going and I'll be like, Ebusi, we switched to English. You know what I mean? But like, that will always make me laugh. So when I first arrived, it was really bad because I had such limited knowledge of, for example, Kiswahili or Sheng. And so people would really take the piss. But I don't mind asking over and over again and trying to memorize something or to practice, even if I get it wrong, because that's how I'll learn any bit of the language or like become any type of local. You know, when I first came, I was taking buses and matatus. I didn't have a car. So like getting to Upper Hill was very difficult for me because I would walk around and just to confirm, I would say Upper Hill, and the conductor doesn't know. He's like looking at me. I may as well be saying ni hao. I may as well be speaking Chinese. He's just looking at me. Then one day it occurred to me, Upper Hill. And he said, You don't even think of that interaction and culture and like discovering new things. Like my accent was very strange. Water was hilarious to people. I'll still say water. Like people die at the way I say water because I don't say water. I don't, you know, also it's British English that's more used here. So from phrases to pronunciation, sometimes things are, you know, are swallowed, you know, or not as enunciated or they're pronounced differently or whatever. Yeah, so there was like a lot of that, I think, that was really interesting in terms of maybe culture shock on both sides to a certain degree upon living here. At work, it was really fine. I mean, that goes back to the thing as I think people were just excited about me. I think I was a real anomaly. I was somebody who was very curious to people. I think it was also curious to people because it was very obvious from the second you interacted with me is that I wasn't curious about like some sort of expatty life and hanging out in what were the foreign joints or something like that. Like I'd get real local and just like real. I like kicking it in a lot of different places and a lot of different kinds of people. And that was very fascinating to people, I guess, because as a New Yorker, you know, who comes from like a middle class background and was just used to hanging out with all different types of people, all kinds of social classes, all kinds of races, all kinds of ethnicities, creeds, colors. It was like the kind, I realized that people had an idea of me because of the way I looked and sound, and it didn't match with who I really was because I was like, no, I'll hang out anywhere with anybody as long as you're interesting and you're good. And you know, we align in some way or something like that. Still the case to this day. And anybody who knows me can attest to that. So it's just like funny because people were like, wait, what? Like I remember one day there were 2 people in upper management who died of laughter. They couldn't believe I was eating boiled eggs. Boiled eggs was so fascinating to them. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. And they were like, Wanjira, until you eat eggs. You eat boiled eggs. And I was like, boiled eggs is like, it became so fascinating that like from the tea lady, that I was getting like shaina, my mayai, you know, with some salt. Like this really, or somebody saw me eating like roadside food, like smokies, like nakachumbari. It was like very, like they were like, whoa, it blew their mind. I was like, isn't this like normal stuff? And then came to find, obviously, living here and experiencing things that I guess like certain things are regulated to certain things. And they're like kind of, you know, whereas like, I'm like, this is like getting a hot dog in New York. Oh, yeah. Oh, was I gypped? Was I played? You know what will make you learn a language real quick? Especially if you're someone like me who wanted like to be seen as a Kenyan and to feel Kenyan because I knew that I wanted to live here for the rest of my life or at least for a long time to come. You will learn enough of a language real quick because people will gyp you and will try to take advantage of you. It happened on matatus and buses and I would know exactly how much to pay. So I never got gypped there. But in 2014, there was no Uber. There was no Bolt. And when I finally got a job, like, you know, a month in, I'm getting, you know, like a month or 2 into starting my new life and adventure, I'm getting a check, right? And I'm a working girl now. I'm a career lady, career woman. I can now take cabs. Yeah. I don't have to always only take I'm a bus, whatever. When I am, although for like getting to and from work every morning and afternoon, I'm taking that. But like to go out, maybe to meet people on a social thing, I don't want to always take a bus or a mat. But if you want to take a cab, you have to have your cab guy or you're asking randos on the street. And that's when you'll get gypped. Because to get from, no exaggeration, to get from like Laving to Tequila Leshwa, they would be charging back in the day like 2K to somebody like me. Like, they would play games. And this is 10 years ago. Like, going on, I guess we're in 2025. Like, you do the math. That's a lot of money. And also, like, my check is like, remember, this is like a beginner's check. You even have to be put on probation first. So I'm not getting like a full sexy check yet. And I still have to think, you know? I want, you know, a lot of caution is to the wind. But yeah, I'm just like, I ain't paying 2K for like a 2-kilometer ride. That's insane. Now you have adaptability. Now you have the eagerness and the want, and in a way the need to become a Kenyan, right? Because now I'm also working here. So now it's not also, I mean, of course I still wanted, like when I was visiting and all those things, to be in touch with the culture. But like, if people see you as too foreign, I'm sorry, you're not going to slap. You know what I'm saying? And I think that counts everywhere in the world. Like, it's okay to be different. But I don't think that if you are going to a place and you don't have the adaptability or the want or the need, rather the adaptability and the want to kind of somehow at least be a foreigner or a different person, you know, who still is in the know of what's going on, people are not going to take to you because it's kind of offensive. You get what I'm saying? So my career grew in the way that it has and does because people see me as so Kenyan. But what's fascinating is how quickly they saw me as so Kenyan. So on the Fuse, I used to be called Miss Randrain. Miss Randrain. And it was me who coined that term because at the time you could call into the show via a landline. But because I was staying with my aunt and my uncle for a while and there was just so much Kikuyu being used, I used to shrub for no reason at all. It wasn't like I was somebody who grew up speaking Kikuyu fluently or something like that. But I would shrub and people would die laughing on air and they would catch the shrub and immediately start tweeting to me or immediately start calling in to laugh about it, you know, jokingly and stuff like that. So I just used to say, call me, I'm Miss Randrain. And I to this day can still have old listeners run up to me and say, hi, Miss Randrain, I loved you on The Fuse. Like, that was one of the best moments. That was such fun radio, you know? So it's all those kinds of stuff. A few years, I want to say like by the third year, fourth year of me living in Kenya, before I even left to go to LA, like I mentioned that I did, I had people thinking I was born and raised here my whole life. Like, they didn't even know that like I was a transplant, that I was somebody who came here on their own accord, or people thought that like maybe my parents moved here. I'm like, my parents live in New York. Like, this was all me. I just really wanted to be here. And then, and it's kind of funny because I think now, like, there are parts of me that also really like to retain and not forget my New Yorkness because New York raised me and I'm really proud of New York and I really love my city, you know? It's a place I was born out of. It's my hometown. I still have my best friends there from childhood and my parents, you know, family and stuff. And this became clear, especially upon moving to Los Angeles, which, by the way, in case you don't know, Los Angeles and New York are like apples and oranges. Like, they're both fruit in the sense that they're big cities, but like nothing at all alike. Like an apple and an orange, not, you know what I'm saying? Like, they just share in common that they're fruit. LA was such an interesting experience because it was the big eye opener for me. It told me I felt kind of foreign living in America, and that was weird. And I remember thinking, wow, like home really is where the heart is. Like, I was doing that same thing that I had been doing before moving to Kenya, where I'm like calling my friends, like talking to my friends every single day, thanks to WhatsApp, social media, blah, blah, blah. Talking to my two besties here, and they're updating me on what's happening, which places are bumping, which places got shut down, what music is going off, which actor is like flying right now. Like, I was really still interested in the culture here, you know? And then I was like, wow, okay, like, I guess like where you're born or where you're raised, which in that case was America, not LA, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, wow, it's kind of weird that I just want to go back so badly. So when I came for what was a visit and then it ended up being no, let me stay because the pandemic was happening. That's what actually, I would have gone, if there was no pandemic, I don't know if we would be having this interview, because maybe I would have gone back and been like, I was only away for a year, and a year in LA is not a lot of time. It's a breath. It's no time, actually. So I was ready to go back, and then the pandemic happened, and I saw that as another sign. And I said, I have to stay in the 254. Like, it's going to be worse over there. I knew for a bleeding fact it was going to be worse over there. I said, one, this thing looks ugly. Two, America actually sticks to its laws. I was like, whatever, like, because I remember hearing about lockdowns happening. Lockdowns were starting to take over from like Jan, Feb. And I said, if I go back there, I'm going to end up locked down in my studio apartment by myself. And sure enough, thank God for my third eye and the gift of foresight that the heavens above have always granted me with, even from when I was a little kid, for whatever reason. So grateful for it, because The National Guard, the American National Guard, was deployed in 2 places. One, Los Angeles, the other, a place called New Rochelle, New York, which is exactly where my parents reside. And for the National Guard to be there, things were horrific. And things weren't as bad in Nairobi, sindio? Like, people, of course, died, and there were, even some friends lost their mother. It was very sad. It was, it was a very difficult time the world over. Emotionally, people were confused also to a certain degree because there was a lot of now mental health crisis and all kinds of things. Yeah, women were dying at an exponential rate around the world because there was a lot of abuse happening. Sometimes you end up in the house with abusive men. It's just weird time. It was a weird, real time. But I was also grateful that, like, it made me, like, switch gears and be like, hold up. Nah, let me come back home. But, like, yeah, it's just, like, it's very interesting. I always tell people, and I really love my mom for this because she always told me this from when I was little. She said, trust your gut. Your gut is your instinct. At the end of the day, first and foremost, we're animals. Human beings forget they're animals because we sit at the top of the food chain, but it doesn't make us any better or less than a cat, a house cat, or a lion. You know what I mean? Or an ape, or whatever. These animals, you'll watch them in the wild, you'll even watch, like, your dog. Like, all of a sudden they'll perk up and be like, because they figure something out, sometimes even before we do. But we have that. And so I'm a big believer in going with your gut and what that internal thing tells you. The few times that I've really screwed myself up in life was because I went against instinct. What I have found is if I ever went against my instinct, guess what? It didn't end up good. I'll tell you that for free. And because thankfully, more often than not, like I said, I'll go with my gut and my instinct, because that's how I was taught to do. It's just, there's something in there. There's something that we have, a sixth sense, that third eye, that I really believe in, like, making sure it's always open. The first production as an actress I ever did here in Kenya was on a YouTube series called The Yard. And The Yard was a really interesting and funky series. It even won a few international awards. I know it won some Zanzibari International Digital Award, actually. But what was cool about that show is it was a brilliant concept by a brilliant young Kenyan dude who produced, created, and to a certain degree also directed it. He also starred in it, actually. I was trying to steal him away from his wife in the series. I was playing somebody ruthless. No, guys, this is not reality. Trust me, I'm a good girl. But it was a really cool series because what it did is that it had The Yard focused on the lives of young creatives in the music industry who were attempting to get ahead, but sometimes had to do some shoddy dealings and things like this. And it featured, what the guy did rather brilliantly is he featured a whole bunch of Kenyan creatives, including myself, Fenagitu, DJ Case. Like, you had all kinds of, Ann Mwaura, Angela Wambui. So you had, like, all these really cool kids and famous folk in the production, and in being Barack Jacuzzi, in being able to do that and feature either their music or whatever, it, like, created buzz. So what it endeavored to do is, like, talk about the industry in some fun way, create a cool show, and then you're also having a lot of heavy, like, it was heavily into the Kenyan music scene, so it was also showcasing a lot of artists. Some you knew, some you didn't yet know. And that was really, really great about it. So I thought that was so, so cool. So that I did prior to leaving, because I would say there's like a chapter 1 and a chapter 2 of my Kenya adventures. Maybe there are a few more chapters, but, act 1, act 2. So that was in act 1. Then there was a hiatus. I was gone for 14 months to be exact. Then I came back. Now, upon coming back, I starred in Disconnect 2. And I was also in a Phoenix theater play before I left as well. That was a big one. And I was in the last Phoenix theater play there was before they shut down. Oh yeah. But that was really incredible. And if you know anything about me, I'm a total theater kid. So it was really exciting to do theater after so long. Actually, I'm really itching to get back into a theater production. So that. And then I came back, and then there was Disconnect 2. And that really was cool, and also got to showcase me in a whole different way. Upon Disconnect 2, which is at Netflix, it's also, still on Netflix since it dropped in 2023. It's also very much all over the world, which is really cool. So I can tell anybody anywhere, like, go watch it, which is lots of fun. So there was that. And then I have done Single Kiasi. So that was really, really dope. Remember, they wanted me in season 2. We had, we talked a little bit. We went away. They came back and they were like, join us season 3 for real. We know you want to grow and we could do a something. I said, let's do a something. And like getting on board with those guys at Insignia was really a blessing. Really adored everything that we did and the work that was achieved in season 3 of Single Kiasi coming back. So excited about that. Big Girl Small World. Big Girl Small World is also a thing. Also a Showmax production. So shout out Showmax because I featured on 2 of their shows. So there's more coming in the acting space. Oh, also, I'm so sorry. I also have a film that just dropped in December. And we're in February. It's called On Air. On Air is about... There was this guy who got into trouble with the cops. And as he's being chased by the cops, he calls a radio station. And he's calling the radio station because, of course, extrajudicial killings are absolutely a thing. And so he's scared. He's scared and he needs help. And he's asking essentially the media to help him. So it's a true story. It's something that happened. You can Google it. It's really wild. But if you have the website, then you can check that out. But if you just Google On Air Kenyan film Wanjira Long Hour, you'll find it. It was such an incredible thing to create. One, because it's like for the culture and on both sides, because of the conversations that are happening in there. It's very interesting, very political in a way, obviously, conversations that are happening in the film. But also, from a media perspective and being a part of the media, the character I play, I'm one of the main characters. So that was a really sick achievement. And I got rave reviews, so you should probably watch it. Oh, yes, the Capitol comeback was amazing. So after being here for a year, came in 2019 for what was supposed to be a month, kept extending, then pandemic, ended up moving back. Came back, by the way, in December 2019. In December 2020, who do I get a call from? Capital. Remember that guy, Danny Monyi, I was telling you is now the head of programs, but was the PA who was the first person to ever hear me record a script? He calls me. And, a lot has changed in the time that I've been away. I've been away for like 2.5 years now because I left in 2018. In mid, like June, July 2018, I left. So he's now the head of programs. And as the head of programs, he calls me and he says, what are you doing? Are you staying? Are you leaving? Like, what's the conversation? Like, you've been here for a year. And I'm like, no, I'm staying. I actually decided to move back. And like, it's December 2020. There's still the pandemic. Things are still weird. But I'm like, yeah, I'm chilling. He's like, let's get you in for a conversation. Turns out that what has formerly been known as Hits Not Homework, and even more recently Hits, right? The really popular hip-hop R&B show, it needs a presenter. And he knows that I've always wanted to host a hip-hop and R&B show. Because as much as I absolutely adore music, and adore music of all kinds, it is probably arguably a fact that hip-hop and R&B is my absolute favorite. But I know a lot of people would be like, did you really like rock? I loved it, grew up with rock, very well versed in a lot of different genres, but man, oh man, do I love hip hop and R&B. So I couldn't be more excited. He's like, you have full reign, make up a name, like create something, blah, blah. So I created The Hype. As a New Yorker, you see in New York, if you say like, hey, you hype, it's like you're excited. That's all born out of like hip hop slang and street culture and things like that. So I created The Hype. I created Big Bounce Friday. Big Bounce is our 2-hour show. And it's shorter, it's briefer, it's mostly just music. It's making sure that, as I like to say, you can put a big old bounce in your step. With Hype, I came up with the slogan, Believe the Hype. I wanted to have fun with stuff. I came up with a YouTube component to the Hype so people could check out clips there. I was just like really excited. So now I'm known as the Hype Queen. I've been there since December 2020. So yeah, like absolutely adored, that show. I guess actually the conversation started in October, November, and then I was on air by December 2020. So it's been it's been 4 years and now 2 months? Yeah, that I've been back and better, baby. So I've really enjoyed coming back. It's been really really interesting doing a completely different type of show where I was doing a mid-morning and I grew Fuse in an insane manner and made Fuse like a different type of vibe, and like Fuse was now making money and was now trending and all this kind of stuff. With Hype, it's also very fun and interesting because I think at first people were kind of like, like, ain't she the chick who does rock, and is like the funny chick? Like, I think a lot of hip hop presenters were seen a lot more serious and like, I don't know, you couldn't be like the funny guy or gal. And I don't know. People have all kinds of weird things that they assume about stuff. But you know me, I'm a work, and I work from a place of knowledge, honey, and experience. So establish myself also in that scene. And I'm very proud and happy about how that's gone and that trajectory for me. The Vibes Curator. Ta-da! So that's a new thing that I am doing. I tapped on my friend's shoulder. Angela Womboy is her name. And I asked her, don't you think we could do something cool? Because I think we could do something really cool. I think we could start something that would be like super duper funky. And it would be in events curation and production. Broke down a lot of ideas that I had. Now, part of why actually this even came out is because somebody was asking me to do... A certain place was asking me to work with them as a host. The hours were a bit funny. So first, I was just bouncing off of Angela for ideas about how I can make this work. And that blossomed into tag teaming and the Vibe Curators. And with the Vibe Curators came this, why don't we do something with event curation and production? All these ideas started coming up, and then, now I've got her going into meetings with me. Let me start from the very beginning. These people wanted me to host. I started bouncing ideas off of her. I end up asking her, can you join me on this one little thing, this hosting gig that I'm supposed to do? But do you want to partner up? Now it turns into a larger production of something, of an idea that I have, yeah? And we're all talking about it from the two different teams, myself and my friend, who aren't even the Vibe Curators yet, just myself and my friend, and then the other team. And we're talking and we're chatting and we're figuring out how we can make this idea that I've come up with happen, because we all think that this is together, that we could collectively do this funky thing. It ends up not being possible for a number of reasons. Okay. And that's okay. If you understand anything about business, if you understand anything about the industry, sometimes really great ideas just don't happen, or they don't happen immediately. It doesn't work. But my friend and I keep talking, and we're like, wait, this could, like, there are other things, like, we could still do this, maybe just like elsewhere. And now I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is just the only thing we can do. I'm like, I think we could do a bunch of stuff. And you know what I think? Let's brand it. And that's how the Vibe Curators are born. I'm like, baby, we a vibe and we're curating. That's how. And then also shout out my friend Quentin Q out in LA. He actually a long time ago told me how one of his friends called him a vibe curator. And I thought, that's such a brilliant thing. And I'd never seen it anywhere. I'd never seen anybody using that. I just remembered that story he had told me. So I was like, yeah, this is great. Marrying all of this together is how the Vibe Curators were born. And that's how Ange and I begun producing events. The way I've always envisioned it is that we would produce all kinds of events. So, you know how maybe you think of a brand and it's only going to do one sort of thing? We're too eclectic for that. Our tastes are too vast. It wouldn't be fair to the public. And so what we did is, the first event that we had was my birthday. November 25th is my birthday. You're more than welcome to send gifts. M-Pesa, yes. Asante sana. I can take an advance. Hamna shida. So that was a blessing. It kicked off. We did it. There were like 300 people. It was a huge, bustling, bumping party from like 11 to like 5:30. It was like insane. And then we did, and it was supposed to be a sing-along. It was more of just like a kick-it hip-hop event. I came, she and I were dressed to impress. I had like outfit changes. Like, it was not a game. Like, I was like, we gotta go hard. Then we had another sing-along in December. And then we had something called Maraveta and Mental Health, marrying the arts and healing. And that event is not started by me or us. That event is purely us curating and producing, because it started by my mom. It's so funny because like the sing-along or the other stuff that I'm going to be doing that I'm very excited about is fabulous. But obviously this other event is an example of the stuff that I want to be doing as well, because it holds such a deep meaning to me. One, My mom started the event because I lost my sister to bipolar disorder. And what I mean by that is she committed suicide. But it will be diabetes or cancer or all these other things that will take a life. So as my mom always rightly says, I think it's fair to say that like you can say the mental illness took the life, not really the person. Because I don't think the average person doesn't like wake up in the morning and want to kill themselves, right? It's because you're unwell. It's because things are really bad. And yes, it could be that you haven't been it's not necessarily that you've been unwell for time. Maybe something's bad, but you're not in your right mind. One can argue. You know what I mean? There's very rarely clarity in these kinds of actions. And a lot of people don't know that about me or know that about my life. And it was something that obviously flipped the script and like had a profound effect on all our lives. It happened 3 days before my 15th birthday. It happened, what was it? Like, that was 3 days before my 15th birthday. I think like 5 days, 4 days before Thanksgiving, which is a huge holiday in the United States. Huge holiday time for people to gather, be with family, celebrate. It's supposed to be happy. And yeah, and you learn, grief is interesting. You'll learn to live with it because it will affect you for the rest of your life. It's not linear. There are the 5 stages. There are certain things that will come and go more immediately, but it can be forever, or maybe it's not always necessarily forever with everyone, but like it can grip you, or like you can have a feeling or a memory. It's a very fascinating thing, especially when somebody dies like that, so unexpected, so what seems so unfair, because they're so young. She was only 27. And then also for it to be in such a violent manner. However the suicide is somebody killing themselves. And so in a way it's committing violence, right? A violent act against oneself, because it's hard to take your own life. So it's not going to be easy, whatever is done. So it's very hard. And it was really interesting because the first time I ever produced that event was in April 2022. And when we produced it then, like I remember like even my mom like talking about suicide and my sister and mental health stuff, and it was really hard for me. Like I went somewhere and cried, and some friends checked on me or whatever. But this time I was able to like sit there and be with it. And that was really liberating in a way, because I do want to sit there and be with it and be with people and talk about these things. So maraveta means poetry in Kikuyu. And so what we kind of came up with, with mom, because she is an artist, she's an educator, she is a teacher, she is a lecturer, she is a public speaker, she is a children's author, an essayist. I mean, she's a lot of things. She's really interesting. But like, she's an artist. I'm born of artists. She does all those things, and my father, a filmmaker. My stepdad's a judge, but totally different, totally different thing. But also an artist in his own way. Actually from a musical point, very musical man. And so we thought it's because sitting around and talking about mental illness all the time is really hard. Like it's heavy. It's real heavy. Like even the tone of this podcast here has changed. It just feels heavy talking about this stuff. And we love the arts. And we're artists. So we said, and a lot of artists also suffer from these afflictions, addiction, mental health challenges, etc. Since she has poetry that is both related and unrelated to my sister, and all kinds of other writings and things and stuff like that, why not have other acts, people doing things and performing and da-da-da-da. But then let's also discuss the mental health aspect. The first time we did this event, April 2022, it was super duper experimental, but had a great turnout. And people kept asking, when is the next one? When is the next one? It was actually men who were going crazy, and really grown men who wanted there to be a next month and a this and a that, And my mom was leaving soon. She doesn't live here. So we just didn't have answers at the time. And I was also very distracted by life. So it wasn't, as much as I've actually for years wanted to do like events, curation, producing, anything like this, I just didn't know how to like start. And like, I just had other stuff going on. So we tried to put something together in 2023 and it didn't work. And that's okay. That's the universe talking to you sometimes, because I think it just wouldn't have hit in the same way as it did this time around when we did it in January 2024. 2025, excuse me. It was such a success. It was so beautiful. And I think it was also just really organized. Like I thought about what worked last time, what didn't. And so I was like, let me get different acts. So it was cool because everybody was doing it for the greater good. It didn't have sponsorship. I couldn't pay any of the artists. But people came and did their thing. You had the spoken word poet, Timoji K. You had the soundscape artist, Modonini Mimi. Shout out Justine Wanda. You may know her as Fake Woke with Justine. She was incredible. Amandeep Jagde came through. They're both comics. So they did some stand-up comedy for us. We had Erosh sing and perform and use his guitar, the incredible Rabai on sax, baby. And Mom, of course, recited her poetry in Kikuyu because we must preserve culture, of course. Otherwise, we're going to die or be absorbed by others. So that's something that's really important. Hence why even it's not poetry and mental health, it's maraveta. To remind us to hold on to our vernacular, our local languages, to always be proud of and love our culture and who we are and ourselves. In addition to, it's very okay to love other things and to adapt to absorb other things, but we must also self-love, right? And promote self. So there was all of that, and it was just really amazing to see it come through and to see it work after pouring so much work and time into it and making sure everything aligns and whatever. Shout out Mir Restaurant in Kilaleshwa, Siaya Road. They're absolutely incredible. They gave us the venue for free. Really, really amazing people. And they were so happy and loved the event itself after all the live performers did their thing. And if I'm forgetting anyone, please forgive me. But then we did a panel and panelists came to speak. Jerry Mushero, who's on the show. I know I just saw her leaving, which is beautiful. I love that. She's a really incredible woman to check out. Mom herself talking about how she got certified in mental illness because we didn't know what bipolar disorder was. No one was talking about it 20 odd years ago. No one was really speaking about these things. So we all got quite the education in my sister's diagnosis, and obviously, accelerated by her not being here when she took her life, and how deadly and scary all these things can be, and what losing your mind looks like. So people spoke about that. People spoke about it from very, very open and honest places. And Waura, my co-host and friend, who now does the views, Fareed Kimani, Dr. Hope Simiu, they were all incredible. So it was just such such an event. And a lot of people asked, when's gonna be the next one? Shout out Lamar the DJ, shout out Freddie Max. They were also DJs who came and did their thing. Freddie and his incredible manager / girlfriend, they were like, we want to be a part of this event when they heard about it in any way possible. Do you need a DJ? And literally offered their services. People were really incredible. And that was really inspirational. And then a lot of people found out about it online. People reached out. Now they're like, are you guys hiring as the vibe curators? Are you doing anything? I had one woman from a very well-known company say, that they want to do initiatives for people because they work with young people. They do something that has to do with young people, and they would love to start having mental health talks. Can we be involved? Is there a way that we can start a conversation here with that? And not, and then, several people who came just to say, can I volunteer? Can I be proactive? What can I do to help you guys and be involved? It was really cool. Another woman asked if she could read her poetry because she had a poetry book that she wrote, and the poetry is surrounding mental health and wellness. And so we let her do a guest spot on there. So it was really cool. What legacy does Wanjira want to leave? I hope people will say that I was fun and interesting and kind. And I hope people will say I tried really hard. I hope they'll say she did it. She did something. She really wanted that, and she went out and she sought it out and she conquered. That's my hope and prayer.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. What an incredible story. I love how vulnerable and open and just real Wanjira is. Her energy is so infectious. Like, you listen to her and you instantly are in a good mood, even when she's talking about heavy things, right? Like, her energy is just infectiously great. I think one of the things that ran through her story for me, part 1 and part 2, is just like this understanding of home. Is home where you're born? Is it where you are now? Is it where your loved ones are? Or is it within you? So wherever you are, regardless of who surrounds you, you're at home. You know what I mean? I really had that theme running through my head as I was listening to Wanjira. But if you check out the show notes, you can connect with her. And I want to hear from you. What did you connect with in this episode in Wanjira's story? Drop a comment. And thank you so much for listening to this episode to the very end and for being part of this family. I appreciate you, and I believe you have everything it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.